Welcome back to Keep It Real Boxing. This is Cypher Box. Okay, so the other day I did a review of the middleweight division, and I kind of want to do the same here with the welterweight division. So let's just start off with who are the current champions at welterweight. Well, we've got the WBC champion, which is Shawn Porter. We've got the WBA Super Welterweight champion, which is Thurman. And then we've got the WBA regular champion, which is Manny Pacquiao. And the regular champion is really just an interim belt, let's be honest with you. You can't take that position or that belt and hold that individual as a real champion, because you can't have two champions in one organization. It's bad enough we've got 3 or 4 in one weight class with different organizations normally, but that regular belt is literally just an interim belt, to be honest with you. All right, then we've got the IBF champion, which is of course Errol Spence Jr. WBO champion, which is Terence Crawford. And just to throw in there, Danny Garcia, because Danny Garcia is one of those top welterweight names out there at the moment. Danny Garcia is sitting as #1 ranked for the WBC. Okay, I'm also going to be talking about Amir and Kell Brook in this video, of course, and at the same time where Adrien Broner fits in with all of this. So let's start with Terence Crawford and Errol Spence Jr. Now, look, there's a lot of, over the last few weeks, I've been hearing a lot of videos and seeing a lot of comments and on social media and YouTube pages that, you got the Errol Spence Jr. fans debating with the Terence Crawford fans, etc. Who's to blame for the fight not happening? Who doesn't want the fight? Who does want the fight? Etc. Look, first of all, I want to start off by saying, look, I always seem to upset someone when I make one of my videos, because simply I'm always going to upset a fanboy. Yeah, there's loads of fanboys out there, and I'm always going to upset someone. Yeah, and I don't expect any different when it comes to this video. But at the end of the day, I am a neutral boxing fan. I don't have any favorite boxers. I'm a supporter of the sport, and I just want to see the best versus the best. Yeah, champion versus champion, undisputed champions in every single weight class. I've said this time and time before. And I'm just a boxing fan giving his opinion on what he's seeing, what he's hearing, and what's been put out there by fighters, promoters, and broadcasters. It's that simple. Yeah, so if you are a fanboy of any of these fighters, don't get your knickers in a twist. Yeah, I don't understand why you guys are so angry in the first place. It's not like you actually know any of these fighters, or you act like some of these fighters are your brothers or your family members or your best friend or something like that. Just chill out. Yeah, and just actually, end of the day, if you don't like to hear criticism about your fighters, your favorite fighters, then you know what? Don't tune into my channel, because that is exactly what I'm going to do. I'm always going to call it how I see it, and if I think someone's ducking someone, then I'm going to call it as a duck. If I think someone's playing games, to avoid a fighter, that's exactly how I'm going to call it. But I will give credit where credit's due as well. Simple as that. So I guess when it comes to Terence Crawford and Errol Spence Jr., this whole thing that's been going on for weeks now between these guys, months actually, I thought, where's the best place to start with all of this? And I suppose the best place to start is Errol Spence Jr. when he did, he answered some questions at a press conference not too long ago. I can't remember, what fight was it? The one where he was a bit tipsy. Adrien Broner, Gervonta Davis, and the Charlos, exactly. They all had it looked like they're having a lads' night out as well while watching the boxing. Had a few drinks, and Errol Spence Jr. was a little bit tipsy when he was up on the podium answering questions from the media, etc. and stuff like that. And I thought probably that's the best place to start, to be honest with you, in regards to what he said there. And no, before you say it, I know how sensitive some of you guys are. I have no problem with Errol Spence Jr. being tipsy up on the podium, having, answering questions, yeah? Or the rest of that lot, like Gervonta Davis, all those guys out having a good time. They're youngsters, they're young lads, they're allowed to go out and enjoy themselves. They're human beings at the end of the day. All the ruckus I saw around that, which people were like, oh, doesn't look good on PBC, and all these PBC fighters out drunk, and it's like, what's wrong with it? You go out on a piss probably every weekend, and yet you're sitting there criticising these guys for going out and enjoying themselves as friends. There's nothing wrong with it at all. Anyway, getting back to the press conference, yeah? Now, I'm not going to repeat everything Errol Spence Jr. said at that press conference, but I'm going to repeat the key things. Now, one of the things he went off on was, and it was quite funny because he was tipsy, yeah? But one of the things he was saying that when he was getting asked about Terence Crawford, he kept saying that Terence Crawford is on the wrong side of the street. meaning he's over there on ESPN with Top Rank and Bob Arum. And he basically turned around and said, I fight on Showtime, I fight on Fox Sport, I'm a PBC fighter, I'm not going to ESPN to fight. Okay, and he was kind of saying that, and he kept repeating that he's on the wrong side of the street. He's on the wrong side of the street. I think he, in a way, he was kind of alluding to the fact that at that time, I think it was just before that press conference, before that weekend, you know, it was announced that Terence Crawford had signed a new deal with Top Rank and ESPN Plus. Now, he may be critical of the fact that, you know, Terence Crawford has signed a deal with Bob Arum. A lot of people out there are going to be critical of it. I may have my opinion of it as well. And I did a video when it was announced that Terence Crawford has signed with Top Rank and Bob Arum. And here's my point of view on all of that. It's none of Errol Spence Jr.'s business, to be honest with you. Yeah. End of the day, Terence Crawford. If Terence Crawford is comfortable with the deal he has with Top Rank, Bob Arum, and ESPN Plus, if he's happy with the money he's getting paid, if he's happy with the way Bob Arum is managing his career for him and promoting him as a fighter, yeah, that's down to Terence Crawford. Yeah, you can't tell a fighter who's happy in his situation, oh, you're on the wrong side, you should have came and signed on this side. Yeah. End of the day, we could be as critical as we want about Bob Arum. I know I'm critical of Bob Arum on a lot of occasions in the past. I have been, yeah. But end of the day, it's down to Terence Crawford if he wants to if he wanted to re-sign with Bob Arum. If he's happy with Bob Arum and the deal he's getting and the money he's making and the exposure he's getting, then that's down to Terence Crawford. I don't think, you know, Errol Spence Jr. is jumping on a podium saying, oh, he's on the wrong side of the street, etc., and all that sort of stuff, getting all up, you know, upset about it, you know, is going to change anything. Yeah, and to be fair, it's none of your business. No one's telling Errol Spence Jr., you know, don't sign with Al Haymon or leave Al Haymon and come to us. You're on the wrong side of the street. You know, that's his business. If he wants to be with Al Haymon at Showtime, etc., that's up to him. So I didn't quite get where he was coming from with that, in my opinion. I felt like that's what he was trying to say, was that why did you sign with Bob Arum again? You should have come and signed on this side. But anyway, now I also get the feeling that Errol Spence Jr. feels that Terence Crawford signed again with Bob Arum and Top Rank ESPN in a way of maybe attempting to avoid Errol Spence Jr. I don't think that's the case. I don't think Terence Crawford is that kind of fighter, personally. Yeah, that I've never had that feeling about Terence Crawford, that he's the sort of fighter who's going to avoid top fighters and challengers like Errol Spence Jr. And that's probably the biggest fight at this moment in time. That's probably the biggest fight at welterweight between these two. Yeah, my point is, and I'm going to be a bit critical of Errol Spence Jr. here, and I'm going to be critical of Terence Crawford and Bob Arum here as well. Alright, so wait and hear me out on this one. Errol Spence Jr. is not, he's signed to PBC and Al Haymon, yeah? We know that. But he has no broadcaster deal. Meaning he does not have a broadcasting deal or contract with Showtime. He doesn't have one with Fox because his next fight is going to be a Fox pay-per-view, which means he's, in terms of broadcasters, in terms of a broadcasting deal, he is a free agent. Yeah. Now, he's saying he doesn't want to go to ESPN. I'm guessing there's a part of that where he feels that he doesn't trust. He's got his loyalty to Showtime and Fox and PBC and all that. But at the same time, he maybe doesn't trust Bob Arum, Top Rank, ESPN, etc. But here's my point. He's got Al Haymon managing him. Do you honestly believe Al Haymon is going to allow Errol Spence Jr. to get screwed in at the negotiation tables for this fight? No. In my opinion, this fight, to make it easy in terms of the purse between these two, just make it 50-50 split. A 50-50 split between these two. Yeah? One, that solves one problem. Two, Errol Spence Jr., think of it this way, yeah? Like I said, he's a free agent. He can go to ESPN, one and done in terms of a fight, bring the belt back with him along with that IBF belt, and then we can have all the belts on PBC. Yeah? He could cross over to ESPN for one fight and one fight only. Yeah. Pick up that belt from Terence Crawford if he's so confident he could beat him. Yeah. And bring both belts back with him, that IBF and that WBO belt, which strengthens his position in the welterweight division, of course. And at the same time, you've got all the belts then on PBC. Yeah, with Thurman, Porter, and then Errol. Right? You could do a mini welterweight tournament between the champions, etc. on Fox or Showtime or whatever, charge pay-per-view. It's a business opportunity as well from a PBC point. So I don't see why they don't do that fight, or why Errol Spence Jr. isn't willing to just cross over for one fight to get this fight with Terence Crawford. Yeah, there's a risk involved because if he gets beaten, then he loses his IBF belt, and then there's two belts sitting on ESPN. Right? But that's a risk sometimes you got to take. Yeah, Terence Crawford is quite clearly tied down to a contract with ESPN now. So the easiest thing to do and the most simple thing to do would be to convince Errol Spence Jr. just to cross over for one fight to get that belt off Terence Crawford. Right? Right. But hold on, I'm not finished there. You know, on the flip side, yeah, we've been hearing Al Heyman talking a lot. Al Heyman saying that, well, you know, we want to make that fight with Errol Spence Jr., you know, with his croaky voice, and what, you know, when he gets asked the question, well, what has to happen for that fight to happen? Oh, all Errol Spence Jr.'s got to do, he's a nice kid, is get his manager to call me, yeah, get Al to call me, and Al calls me, we can sit down, we could talk about it, we could talk about having a fight on ESPN or on Showtime, we can talk options, blah blah blah, but tell him to call me. It's that simple? Yeah, it's that simple. Okay, here we go. This is where egos get in the way of great fights being made. If Al Heyman hasn't contacted you, pick up the phone and contact him. If I was Terence Crawford, and I'm critical of Terence Crawford here as well, as a fighter, yes, it's your job to you tend to let your promoter go about promoting you, yeah, and getting you fights. But if there's a specific fight that you really want, then you would pick up the phone, ring Bob, and say, Bob, call Al and find out what the deal is. And if he turns around and says to you, no, let him call us. No, Bob, we've been waiting around long enough. Call Al, yeah. And if you don't trust your promoter, then call Al yourself. Do you know what I mean? There's no reason why Bob Arum can't pick up the phone and call Al Heyman and PBC and find out if they can make a deal. Now, yes, there is a problem because Terence Crawford, of course, is tied into an ESPN contract. But we've seen situations like that in the past. Mike Tyson versus Lennox Lewis, which is probably the most easiest one as an example to give you guys. Yeah? Lennox Lewis on HBO with a HBO contract. Mike Tyson on Showtime with a Showtime contract. When they made the fight, what did Lennox Lewis say to his management team and HBO? Turned around and said, don't come and talk to me about any fights unless you come to me with the Mike Tyson fight. Do what you got to do, make the fight. And in the end, they broadcasted the fight on both platforms, on Showtime and HBO. Same with Manny Pacquiao and Mayweather. They did it on both HBO and Showtime. The same with Vladimir Klitschko and Anthony Joshua out in the US. Showtime got to watch the live show of AJ versus Klitschko, and then it was repeated in the evening and shown on HBO. So there are ways around that. It's been done on a number of occasions. So pick up the phone, Bob, ring Al, say, listen, this is a deal, let's do a 50-50 split, and guess what? We'll just share the broadcasting rights, yeah? You can put Enroll on Fox or whatever, you can put the fight on Fox or Showtime, wherever you want to do it, and we'll stick it on ESPN Plus. Yeah? Done and dusted. I've said this before, that it's not difficult. These promoters and these broadcasters, etc., and these managers, they make it sound like it's a lot more complicated than it seems. Yeah? And they feed that into their fighters, and their fighters buy into it. Yeah? The fighters buy into it and they say, oh, well, there's these problems, you know. I've heard Terence Crawford saying, you know, well, it's about the money as well. There's no problem with the money. Just do a 50-50 split. Simple as that. You're both champions, 50-50. You either Spence crosses over and fights on ESPN, and if he's not willing to do that, then just broadcast the fight on both platforms. Simple as that. We've seen it done before. It can be done again. That's my take on that whole situation between Terence Crawford and Errol Spence Jr. And I was going to do a separate video on this, but as for Bob Arum referring to Al Heyman as the cancer of boxing, do you know what? Bang out of order, yeah? Especially using that term. Listen, I'm a 2-time cancer survivor, yeah? So I will take offense to that comment, yeah? Alright? Bob Arum's an idiot, in my opinion, yeah? A complete and utter idiot, yeah? You tell me what Al Heyman's done to hurt the sport of boxing. He gets all his criticism, but I don't understand what he's done. He looks after his fighters. All his fighters get paid well. I don't hear any complaints from his fighters ever. Yeah, he puts on pretty good cards. Yeah, sometimes they're not. He does get them wrong, but which promoter doesn't? Yeah, not every fight can be a great, you know, world-class fight. It just doesn't work out that way. Yeah, but what has he done to be labelled that? That is absolutely ridiculous. And as for Bob Arum isn't exactly squeaky clean. All right. I rewatched a documentary on Marvelous Marvin Hagler the other day, yeah, and this is what I've seen it many times, and I watched it. It was on my recommended list on YouTube, and I thought, you know what, let's watch that again. So I watched it again, and there was an interesting bit in that documentary about Bob Arum. The story goes, and as it was said in the documentary, the story goes that Marvin Hagler was obviously beating everyone. Yeah, he was beating everyone in the middleweight division. This is before he was a champion at middleweight, right? But he wasn't getting his shot at the title. No one could understand it. He couldn't understand it. He was beating everyone. Yeah, he didn't get as much TV exposure like Sugar Ray Leonard, of course, because Sugar Ray Leonard was the superstar back then, right? Marvin Hagler was this guy, you know, he was kind of like working his way out from the back. Do you know what I mean? And in the background. But he was beating everyone at middleweight. Yeah, and he wasn't getting his shot though. So the politics started to play in terms of boxing when it came to Marvin Hagler. And somehow, I can't remember the full story, but I remember the part where apparently Bob Arum said this himself, I think, and so did a couple of the media guys in the documentary. They turned around and said that some congressman from Washington DC turned around and said to Bob Arum, if Marvin Hagler does not get his middleweight title shot in his next fight or the fight after that, they were going to hold one of those congressional hearings as to why he hasn't got his middleweight title shot. And I think Bob Arum in the documentary admitted that as well. And then guess what Bob did? He made the fight for Marvin Hagler to get his title shot at the middleweight crown. So that says everything about Bob Arum. And let's not forget, you know, he's had promotional contract issues with many fighters who've had to take him to court to get himself out of the contracts. You look at Floyd Mayweather was one of them. Didn't he have to buy himself out of his contract because he wasn't happy with the way Bob Arum was promoting him? Or wasn't promoting him, should we say? You know, look at Mikey Garcia in recent years. Yeah, I think Julio Cesar Chavez also had a problem with Bob Arum too. I'm referring to junior, not senior there, of course. You know, there's a number of fighters out there. So for him to turn around and say he's Al Heyman's a cancer of boxing, yet Al Heyman's, you know, never screwed any of his fighters over, but you have, is a bit of contradiction and quite hypocritical in my opinion. So I think, you know, anyone who's buying into that nonsense that's been sold by Bob Arum, you know what, switch your ears off, block your ears, because it's just a load of rubbish. It's just him trying to play a bit of the old game of media propaganda, I suppose. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that Al Heyman's perfect or anything like that, but my point with Bob Arum is don't throw stones when you live in a glass house yourself. Do you get what I mean? Yeah, alright. Anyway, look, that's my take on the whole Spence and Crawford situation. Anyway, so let's move on, yeah? Okay, so as you know, on Tuesday we had the announcement from PBC and Fox, and apparently Keith Thurman will be making his return to the ring in January, on January 26th against Josito Lopez. Tune-up fight is what he wants first, and then he wants a competitive rematch, and then he says he'll go on and take Errol Spence Jr. Right, so it looks like Thurman's going to return to the ring. Don't get me wrong, he's received a lot of criticism over the last year or so, since the Danny Garcia fight and his injury and him getting married and all this sort of stuff. A lot of people believe he is afraid of Errol Spence Jr., that he's trying to avoid Errol Spence Jr. To be honest with you, everyone thinks that every welterweight's afraid of Errol Spence Jr. and trying to duck Errol Spence Jr. in some way, shape or form. Right, but look, he says it's down to legitimately, you know, there's legitimate reasons why that fight hasn't happened, and it's down to his injury, his elbow injury, and then when he did try to make a comeback this year, while sparring, he injured his hand, his left hand or whatever it was, and he said, if I can't even spar my sparring if I can't even jab my sparring partners and punch them, then what good am I going to be in a competitive fight against Errol Spence Jr. or any other fighter for that matter, which makes sense to me to a degree. I understand the stick that he's getting, because let's be honest, yeah, boxing is a skeptical sport, yeah, all right. We are all skeptical of fighters when they give reasons as to why fights aren't happening. Yeah, we don't trust fighters, we don't believe promoters, we don't believe broadcasters. It's part of the sport, it's part of the politics, yeah, that we don't believe a fighter when he says, oh, it's because of my injury and all this sort of stuff, and they come up with reasons as to why a fight's not happening. Naturally, we just turn and say, oh, he's ducking him. I remember this year, I've seen a lot of guys do videos where, you know, he was at a baseball game and he was throwing a baseball, but from the way it was looking, he was throwing it up in the air. He wasn't throwing like a full fastball or anything like that, like giving it his all. So like how much you can really read into that as well, you know what I mean? Let's put it this way, yeah? If someone took a picture of Keith Thurman, as nasty as this is going to sound, of wiping his ass after taking a shit, does that mean you're going to say, well, look, he can wipe his ass, that means he can fight? Do you know what I mean? Like, it was ridiculous how some people out there were reaching for a reason to say he's ducking, you know. Oh, look, he's throwing that ball. Oh, his elbow's fine. Well, how do you know how fast he was throwing that ball or not? You know, was it a fast ball or what? You know, because it looked like for me he was just throwing it up in the air and that was it. You know, he wasn't putting everything into it, and why would he? He's not a baseball player. Yeah. But anyway, look, Keith Thurman's going to return anyway. Yeah. But let's talk about his injury a little bit as well, because funnily enough, after that announcement from PBC and Fox, he put up this post. Now, before I start talking about this post and I start talking about the picture he's put up about, this was obviously straight after his surgery for his elbow injury, right? Notice how when that picture went up of Keith Thurman throwing the baseball, yeah, every man on his YouTube channel was putting up videos about the baseball picture. Literally within hours of that picture being posted, yeah, they were sticking up YouTube videos saying, oh, look at this, his arm's fine, he can fight, he's just making excuses, etc, etc. Now, those videos went up instantly, yeah, and the baseball pictures were reposted on social media and people were criticizing Keith Thurman, all right? And don't get me wrong, I get where people are coming from with that. I do understand where people are coming from. I understand why people are skeptical of when he put up that whole baseball picture and stuff like that. But at the same time, this post went up late last night in the US after the PBC Fox announcement, and then also this was obviously early hours in the UK as well, right? Yet I haven't seen one of those YouTube channels, those same YouTube channels who are being very critical of the baseball picture, do a video on this, talking about the injury and the extensiveness of how extent the injury was and how serious the surgery was regarding to Keith Thurman's elbow, right? This is what I'm on about, yeah? This clearly shows to me that those YouTube channels have biased agendas. Now, I'm not saying that for definitely. I could say that Keith Thurman isn't making excuses, or he isn't scared, or he is scared, or he isn't scared of Keith Thurman. I can't say that. I don't know the man from Adam. Yeah, I don't know him personally. I can just go on information that's put out there and what he's saying and what's being said and try and read between the lines. That's all we can do when you've got a YouTube channel. Yeah, I don't have access to Keith Thurman, so I don't know, right? But my point is that if you're gonna talk about that baseball picture, you have to talk about this post as well. Yeah, and not one of them has done a video on this. Yeah, but they were all quick to do a video on that baseball picture, which tells me that they want to give you half the story. Yeah, they want to give you half the story because it fits into an agenda that they have. It's that simple. But I don't do that here on Keep It Real Boxing. I'm going to give you the full story. So yeah, I've talked about the baseball picture. And yes, I can understand why people are being skeptical of it. Even I was looking at the picture thinking, how bad is your elbow? Yeah, I'm not going to lie, even I thought that, yeah? But then you've got to read between the lines. Now, let's talk about this post that he put up last night of, you know, this his elbow injury, the surgery, after the surgery for his elbow injury, yeah? Now, I don't know about you, but that injury looks quite serious, yeah? How extent the surgery was for that injury looks quite serious, yeah? All right, it looks like, you know, that's something that was going to take a long time to recover from. He said he needed 10-11 months yesterday at the press conference for PBC and Fox, saying that he needed 10 months to heal. Yes, you know, he wants the fights, but he's not going to do it at the cost of his own personal health, which I understand to a degree, yeah? But that looks quite serious, yeah? Have a real good look at that, yeah? that doesn't look like it was just some little minor cut they put into him and to fix up his hand, his elbow, sorry. That looks quite serious. Yeah, and that looks like something that would take a long time to recover from. Remember, when you're cutting into areas like that, yeah, you're cutting into the nerve endings as well. Yeah, I've had some serious surgery over the last 5 to 6 years. Like I told you, I was a cancer survivor, so that was around my cancer, my 2 battles with cancer, and they cut into my nerves, into my nerve endings a lot. And even to this day now, 6 years later down the line, I'm still having little issues with my nerve endings. Yeah, sometimes they heal completely, sometimes they don't heal at all. Yeah, and it will take a long time to recover, especially if you're a boxer. Yeah, here's my take. Yeah, would you rather see a Keith Thurman go into the ring with Errol Spence Jr. 6 months ago, and let's say he lost to Errol Spence Jr., because that's a possibility, of course. Yeah, would you rather see that version of Keith Thurman, and then after the fight saying that, oh, I never really fully recovered from my injury, you know, my elbow's hurting, oh, you know, I took this fight too soon, I probably needed another 4 or 5 months to recover from the injury, etc, etc, etc. Then all the Keith Thurman fanboys will turn around and say, well, Errol really didn't win that fight because Keith was injured, etc, etc, and Errol wouldn't get full credit for it, right? Or would you rather have a Keith Thurman who's fully comfortable, fully confident, and ready to go, 100%, no excuses against Errol Spence Jr.? I know which one I would rather see. I would rather see the latter. Yeah? So I know as boxing fans, we are impatient. Yeah? I'm impatient sometimes. I want to see fights like yesterday sometimes. But sometimes you got to learn to be a bit patient and think to yourself, well, hold on. All right, let's give him the benefit of the doubt, which is what I've done with Keith Thurman. Yeah? I've given him the benefit of the doubt. Right? And in my opinion, let him have his tune-up. Let him have his competitive rematch, yeah, with Shawn Porter or whatever. And after that, after the Shawn Porter fight, if he doesn't fight Errol Spence Jr. next, I will be all over Keith Thurman like white on rice. I kid you not. Yeah? And there's plenty of other fights that can be made out there with Errol Spence Jr. Don't get me wrong, you know. There's still, like I said to you earlier on in the video when I talked about Errol Spence Jr. with Terence Crawford, you know, these fights aren't difficult to make. It's the ego and the politics that get in the way of the promoters and the broadcasters and stuff like that. And then they kind of, in a sense, kind of brainwash their fighters into believing the same stuff as well, and they go along with the stories. But these fights can be made. But look, I'm willing to be a little bit patient with Keith Thurman because I don't want to hear any excuses. If he loses to Errol Spence Jr., not saying that he would, yeah, because Keith could win that fight, but if Keith Thurman loses that fight to Errol Spence Jr., I don't want to hear no excuses, like how Manny Pacquiao made excuses about his shoulder against Floyd Mayweather. Yeah, I don't want to hear the excuses, because then no one gives credit to Errol Spence Jr. if he was to beat Keith Thurman. Let's be honest. Yeah. Okay, so let's move on. Yeah, let's talk about Shawn Porter a little bit. So let's talk about Shawn Porter and Keith Thurman, right? So Keith Thurman's going to have his tune-up fight against Josito Lopez, which you would expect him to win. And if he does win, he wants to go on and fight Shawn Porter next. He says he wants to get his WBC belt which he had to vacate because of his inactivity. Whether he was stripped by the WBC or vacated it, who knows? Yeah, doesn't matter. Either way, the belt was gone and he wants it back. Right, Shawn Porter. You know what? I said something in my video yesterday because I was a little bit confused about this whole WBC Shawn Porter having 2 mandatory challenges. Now, I read an article a few weeks ago on BoxingScene.com where it talked about his 2 mandatory defenses or his 2 mandatory challenges, and they were apparently, one was Keith Thurman and the other one was Andre Berto, because Andre Berto had beaten Devin Alexander. Right? Now, I've just found out that apparently this guy he's fighting in, when is it, March? He's fighting this guy called Ugas, who I don't really know a lot about. All I know, he's 23-0 and he's got 3 knockouts and no notable names on his record. I was like, that's got to be a cherry pick. It doesn't make sense to me. Yeah, but apparently that fight's been mandated, and from what I understand, that the Ugas fight for Shawn Porter is one of his mandatory defenses, which doesn't make sense to me at all. The WBC, they change the goalpost whenever it suits them. Right, but this is where the skeptical side of me comes out now, yeah, and this is where boxing fans become skeptical, because it makes it feel like, right, okay, so have you done that to protect Shawn Porter from Errol Spence Jr.? All right, because that's the fight that everyone was expecting to see next. But we're not going to see next because Shawn Porter says, well, I have mandatory obligations. I do want the Errol Spence Jr., but I have to fulfill my mandatory obligations with the WBC, the 2 back-to-back ones he's got. So here's all I've got to say is that the WBC, the WBO, the WBA and the IBF, they always turn around and say that a unification fight supersedes a mandatory defense. So why are we seeing Shawn Porter versus Ugas? If that's the case, how many times have you heard Mauricio Suleiman say that, like about the whole AJ Wilder situation? He's also turned around recently said that, oh, if AJ versus Wilder cannot, or the winner of Fury Wilder can't make a fight with Anthony Joshua next, they will have to fulfill their mandatory defense against Dominic Breazeale. Right, so that's basically him saying that the unification fight will supersede the mandatory defense if it can be made. So why is that not the case here? I don't understand. What was the problem? You know, Shawn Porter keeps saying he's got mandatory defenses that he's obligated to make, but surely the unification fight between Shawn Porter and Errol Spence Jr. is more important. No, it doesn't make that doesn't make sense to me at all. Right now, obviously Danny Garcia is sitting as the #1 contender for the WBC, which again I don't understand. You know, he lost to Keith Thurman last year. He lost his belt to him last year. He fought Shawn Porter for the vacant title this year, the vacant WBC belt, which Keith Thurman vacated. And he lost to Shawn Porter. So how is he sitting as a #1 contender? That doesn't make sense to me as well, right? And I got a funny feeling, like, I hope this isn't going to be the case, because I will start really getting on their backs about it. It feels like, look, the way I see it is Thurman has his tune-up. Shawn Porter has his mandated fight against Ugas. Yeah. They face each other next, right? That means Shawn Porter's handed both his mandatory challenges then in that sense, because Thurman obviously has that right because he vacated. He can just let the WBC know when he wants a shot. And that fight apparently could happen in June, July. Yeah, between Thurman and Porter. And basically, after they have a fight, the winner out of Shawn Porter and Keith Thurman, in my opinion, has to go on and fight in Errol Spence Jr. then. Yeah? Because if I see Danny Garcia creeping back in there after those two have fought, yeah, if I see Danny Garcia creep back in there for a shot at the winner of Thurman versus Thurman versus Porter, I'm gonna be pissed. Yeah? I could see that happening. Yeah, I could see something like that happening. The way Danny Garcia is being positioned in the WBC rankings as #1 contender is making me think like that's what's going to happen next. You're going to get Thurman beats Lopez. That's what you would expect to see anyway. Porter beats Ugas. You then see Thurman versus Porter again in a rematch. And then the winner of that will end up rematching Danny Garcia, which shouldn't be the case. It should be in Errol Spence Jr. Because what has Danny Garcia done to put himself back into that position? He's had 2 losses. One against Keith Thurman, where he lost his WBC title, and then he lost in the vacant title fight for the WBC belt against Shawn Porter. That wouldn't make sense to me. Yeah, so all this stuff with Shawn Porter at the moment doesn't make sense to me. But then at the same time, I'm already kind of predicting and seeing what's going to happen down the line. And if that does happen, and Errol Spence Jr. isn't the next fight after Thurman and Porter fight each other, then you know what, I'm seriously going to start getting on my channel about all of that. That's when that side of me, that skeptical side of me that I talked about, is going to come out, yeah, and call it how I see it, yeah, which is BS basically. But let's hope I am wrong, of course. Let's hope Thurman, he gets his win over Lopez. Shawn Porter gets his win over Ugas. They fight each other in a competitive rematch. That's the second mandatory challenge, I would assume, for Shawn Porter. And the winner of that goes on and fights Errol Spence Jr. Yeah? Let's hope that's what happens. If it doesn't, then hey, I'm going to call it. You know I will. Okay, so let's move on from the whole Spence, Garcia, Thurman, Porter, Crawford situation. Let's talk about Manny Pacquiao. Alright, so Manny Pacquiao is signed to PBC and Al Heyman. right? Which I think is actually a pretty good move, and I don't know why it's taken him so long to do. I'm kind of glad he hasn't signed back up with Bob Arum, because I don't think Bob Arum would have done anything great for his career. But look, it is a good move. And remember, Manny is currently holding that WBA regular belt, yeah, at welterweight. He's holding the regular championship at welterweight. And remember, for me, the way I look at the regular belt is that it's an interim championship belt. It's not a legitimate world title belt, in my opinion, yeah? So let's talk about Manny Pacquiao's options here, right? Okay, so he's in the best position because all the top welterweights, apart from Terence Crawford, fight on PBC. They're PBC fighters. Danny Garcia, Errol, Spence Jr., Keith Thurman, Shawn Porter. And of course, we know what Manny Pacquiao's looking for. He's looking for that Mayweather rematch. Yeah, he wants a rematch with Mayweather. He started talking about his shoulder injury, that, oh, you know, we're not sure who really would have won the fight. I had a shoulder injury, which, in my opinion, I don't buy all of that shoulder injury nonsense. I think it's just sour grapes, to be honest with you. Yeah, but he could potentially be fighting first Adrien Broner in January 2019 by the looks of things, and it looks like it's going to be announced on Monday next week, right? They're going to announce that fight, and it's going to be Showtime pay-per-view by the looks of things. Yeah, a lot of people are wondering, like, well, hold on, why is it not? Do you know what I mean? A lot of people are like, were expecting it to be, I don't know whether people were expecting to see it on Fox or whatever, but it's going to be Showtime pay-per-view. Yeah. What do I think of the fight? A lot of people saying it's a cherry pick for Manny Pacquiao, that is, to fight Adrien Broner. Me personally, look, I've not got anything really against the fight itself, but at the same time, you know, it's an opportunity for Adrien Broner as well. Yeah, Adrien Broner, you know, let's be honest, you know, Adrien Broner probably hasn't impressed as much as he should have throughout his career, right? Those when he was fighting at 135 and 140, you know, he was looking like the next Mayweather, you know, to a lot of people, and he hasn't worked out that way for Adrien Broner. Don't get me wrong, one thing I like about Adrien Broner is that whoever's put in front of Adrien Broner, he will fight him. Yeah, it doesn't matter who it is, he'll put, whether it's a top name or, you know, middle average fighter, whoever it is he's put in front of him, he will fight them. But like I said, this is an opportunity for Adrien Broner. If he can beat Manny Pacquiao, yes, an old version of Manny Pacquiao, but if he can beat Manny Pacquiao, you know, maybe this springballs him to bigger and better things going forward. Maybe not as well, because, you know, we never know with Adrien Broner. He's one of those controversial characters in the sport that you just can't predict what he's going to do next or what's going to happen next with him. But, you know, I guess, you know, this is Manny Pacquiao kind of, hopefully, you know, if he wins this fight, looks good against Adrien Broner, he can hopefully get the Mayweather fight next. But at the same time, this is something that Mayweather does quite often. He throws, I don't know whether Adrien Broner's aware of this or not, but if you notice it, you know, Adrien Broner kind of gets thrown out there to kind of test the fighter before Mayweather fights. So if you look at the Marcus Maidana fight, you know, Adrien Broner fought Marcus Maidana first, and then Floyd Mayweather fought him. You know, and I think that's the same situation they're doing here. Whereas Adrien Broner is going to fight Manny Pacquiao, see what Manny Pacquiao's got. Floyd Mayweather then can see and say, kind of study and see where Manny Pacquiao is at this point in his career, and then fight. If there is going to be a rematch, then you'd see a Mayweather versus Pacquiao rematch, if that makes sense. Yeah, but at the same time, you know, Floyd Mayweather hasn't really done himself any favors with this whole thing with that Tenshin Nasukawa fight on Ryzen, which he pulled out of. You know, whether he was scared or not, who knows, I don't know. Yeah, but it could have been an attempt to just get his name out there. You know, Floyd is good at marketing himself and keeping himself relevant. Whether it's good news or bad news, he's good at keeping himself out there and getting everyone to talk about him. And if he is going to have a rematch with Manny Pacquiao, then he's going to want to put his name out there, whether it's negatively or positively, it doesn't matter. Yeah, as long as you're talking about it, because when the fight gets made, it's more hype for the fight. Yeah, if that makes sense. So I'm wondering whether that's the whole reason Manny Pacquiao is going to fight Broner, because you know what, Mayweather said, you know what, chuck Broner in there with him. To our aim, he said, chuck Broner in there with him, so I can see what Manny Pacquiao's got, you know, before I decide to rematch him or not. Yeah. That's what I think might be going on there, you know. But don't forget, you know, if the Mayweather fight doesn't materialize, then there's other options then there for Manny Pacquiao. You know, like I said, you know, I don't think he'd fight Errol Spence Jr. I don't think he'll fight Keith Thurman. I think he'd probably maybe fight Shawn Porter, and then maybe fight Danny Garcia. From what I understand, last year when Bob Arum flew out to the Philippines to talk to Manny Pacquiao said he wanted 3 more fights, yeah, before he ended his career and retired officially. That's it. You know, so Broner would be one of those fights. I'm guessing Mayweather would be another fight if it could be made, yeah? And he may not come back after the Mayweather fight, or he takes another fight or not, yeah? After that, if the Mayweather fight doesn't happen, then Broner's one of those fights, and then he could probably potentially fight someone like Danny Garcia next, who would, you know, it would be probably an easier fight than Shawn Porter, than Errol Spence Jr. and Keith Thurman. But not only that, he could also fight Shawn Porter as well, yeah? So it'll be interesting to see how the end run of Manny Pacquiao's career ends up looking on PBC and without Heyman, etc. Yeah, but anyway, it's one of those things we just have to wait and see how it all turns out, to be honest with you. Okay, before I go on and start talking about Mikey Garcia and talk about welterweights records, the top welterweights records, let's quickly touch on Amir Khan versus Kell Brook. Yep, let's talk about these 2 jokers from the UK. Look, the simple fact of the matter is, make the damn fight, yeah? Okay, Amir Khan just needs to stop with his divish demands for starters. You know, he's already asking Kell to come back down from 154 to fight him at 147 pounds. He says he's a 147 pound fighter. That's the only way the fight happens. Then he's saying that he wants a rehydration clause in place, right? And then he starts saying, well, when Kell was an IBF champion, he had to adhere to the 10-pound rehydration clause rule, etc., and stuff like that, the second day weigh-in. And Kell Brook, rightfully so, came back and said, and basically said, he goes, we're not fighting for the IBF belt here though. And not be funny, at the same time, Amir's 2 comeback fights against Samuel Vargas, and who was the other guy, the first one? Phil LaGreco. Phil LaGreco was fought as a catchweight at 150 pounds. The fight against Samuel Vargas, he came in too heavy anyway. He came in at 148 pounds when he weighed in. He had to strip down to his bare bum to get in to come in on weight. That's Amir Khan. So I don't know whether, I think he's got a bit of a problem with weight. I don't think he can make 147, to be honest with you. Yeah, I think it's a load of nonsense. Yeah, I can understand that happening with the first fight because he was out for so long. But the second fight, you should have it in control. Simple as that. But so I don't know what he's banging on about this 10-pound rehydration clause. He's just trying to get everything in his favour, trying to get all the advantages, so he can put himself in a position where he can try and guarantee himself the win against Kell Brook. That's how I see it. But if you're truly confident that you could beat Kell Brook, you don't need none of that. Just make the fight. Do you know what I mean? You know, it's all a bunch of nonsense in my opinion. You know, and a lot of people are giving Kell Brook a bit of stick over it as well, but I don't see why. You know, there's no need for a 10-pound rehydration clause. What are you worried about? Yeah? Do you know what I mean? There's no need for all of that. Just make the damn fight. It's not that difficult of a fight to be made. Make it happen, yeah? To be honest with you, it's getting to the point where a lot of people are turning around and saying, oh, I really want to see that fight, you know, getting on Eddie Hearn's back about it and saying, oh, Eddie, when are we going to see the fight? Come on, what are you doing? And he's like, I can't do anything about it. It's down to the fighters, which is true. Eddie can't do anything about it. He can just present options to the fighters, and the fighters have to agree on it. Until the fighters agree on it, Eddie can't do shit. Yeah? But at the same time, a lot of people are saying that they want to see the fight still, and I'm getting to that point, like, I couldn't care less if it happens or not now. Yeah, I really couldn't care less. It's not a fight that I'm going to go 10 years down the line and say, oh, shame that Kell Brook and Amir Khan fight didn't happen. I don't really care anymore because it's starting to irritate me now. Yeah, and I think I'm pretty much done talking about it, you know, and I don't think I'm going to talk about it until, you know, the fight gets made. And if the fight never gets made, then I don't have to ever talk about it again. And that's how I feel with the whole Kell Brook Amir Khan situation. And as for Amir Khan at welterweight, I don't think Amir Khan beats Thurman. I don't think Amir Khan beats Errol Spence Jr. personally. I think he'll find it very difficult against Shawn Porter. He may beat Danny Garcia, but again, Danny Garcia, you know, he's proven in the past that timing beats speed. So, you know, and he's clearly not going to get that Manny Pacquiao fight anytime soon, because Manny Pacquiao's fighting Adrien Broner, and then he's hoping for the Floyd Mayweather fight, and he'll probably retire after that, Manny Pacquiao, or have one more, and it won't be Amir Khan, I can guarantee you that. So he needs to stop, you know, crossing his fingers and hoping that he'll get a Manny Pacquiao fight or Floyd Mayweather fight. It's not going to happen, Amir. Move on with your career. Yeah, make the Kell Brook fight. Simple as that. Okay, so let's talk about this debate that's been going on as well, you know, on social media, YouTube, wherever. You know, a lot of people are debating who's the #1 welterweight. And I saw an interview recently with Danny Garcia, and Danny Garcia turned around and said, when he was asked that question, and it wasn't saying that Danny Garcia was #1 because he's not a champion, of course, but he was asked, like, who's the #1 out of, you know, Thurman, Spence, Crawford, Porter, the champions, who's the #1 welterweight? And he turned around and said, no one is. He said none of them are #1 welterweights. You know, none of them can claim that #1 slot in the welterweight division, because, you know, they haven't fought each other. You know, so yeah, all right, Keith Thurman and Porter have fought each other, but meaning Spence hasn't fought Thurman, or he hasn't fought Porter, and vice versa, etc. Until they're basically, what he's saying is, until there is an undisputed champion at welterweight, there isn't a #1 welterweight on the world in the boxing scene, and I have to agree with that. I do genuinely have to agree with that. Until we see an undisputed champion, no one can claim that #1 spot. Yeah, until we see an undisputed champion, there is no #1 welterweight. It's the same at middleweight or heavyweight. You know, there isn't a #1 because there's no undisputed champion. There has to be an undisputed champion, in my opinion, to be able to say that's the #1 welterweight on the planet. Yeah, facts. Yeah, and I totally agree with him. But I kind of wanted to talk about all these guys and their records, their resumes a little bit. So I've got a few screenshots that I put together of their box rec records, and let's just kind of go through that a little bit before I move on to Mikey Garcia and Errol Spence Jr., of course. So apologies for the tacky looking screenshots. Yeah, I did it on my phone. Yeah, I do most of my videos for my smartphone, not for my laptop anymore. It's a lot easier. So I do apologise for that. But I will talk you through it because I've got it out on my tablets, their box rec records. So let's start with Spence. So you look at Spence, he's due to fight Mikey Garcia, of course, don't get me wrong. Yeah, we know that's a pretty top name, but again, he is pulling someone coming up from a lower division. Yeah, right. His last fight was against Campo, sorry. Yeah, and that was his mandatory defense. Before that, he fought Lamont Peterson. He fought Kell Brook as well. And those are probably the most notable names on his record, Peterson and Kell Brook, in my opinion. Yeah, he's fought Bundu as well. Leonard Bundu's really a gatekeeper, journeyman type. He's a solid fighter, don't get me wrong, but you know, he's not like an elite level fighter or anything like that. You look at Chris Algieri. Yes, Chris Algieri, I know he won a world title at 140 pounds against Ruslan Provodnikov a few years ago. But what's Chris Algieri done since then? You know, he lost to Manny Pacquiao and stuff like that. I think he fought Amir Khan as well, didn't he? He lost to Amir Khan. He's another like type of journeyman gatekeeper type. And then the other names are just fighters that, you know, the up-and-coming fighters that you would expect someone who's coming up the ranks to fight, you know, like Phil LaGreco and Samuel Vargas and stuff like that, you know. So again, is that record speaking volumes? Yeah. You look at and yeah, there is the argument that, you know what, he's not getting the fights against the other top welterweights at the moment. I understand that. I'm not going to ignore that. Don't get me wrong. I do understand that completely. But when you look at his record, there's two names that stand out, and that's, for me, Lamont Peterson and Kell Brook. Yeah. I know he talks about Chris Algieri a lot, but Chris Algieri is not a fighter I rate. Let's be honest. I do not rate Chris Algieri, so I'm not going to give him that sort of that kind of credit. Chris Algieri is what I'm trying to say, you know. So the two notable names on his record are Lamont Peterson, yeah, and Kell Brook, yeah. Now let's look at Terence Crawford, yeah, right. So Terence Crawford, right, at welterweight, he's only fought Jose Benavidez, yeah, and Jeff Horn, so he's not got a great record at this moment in time, but he's only just jumped into welterweight. Let's not forget that, yeah, right. And then his most notable victories are going to come at 140 and below. Yeah, so you look at fights like Victor Postol, yeah, you know, Yorkis Gamboa, even when he beat Ricky Burns for the title. But again, these aren't like fans, these aren't fighters that are well known amongst, you know, the casual boxing fans and stuff like that. You know, Felix Diaz, etc. Yeah, you could, like, Julius Ndongo was on there. He was great against Ricky Burns, but then when he stepped into the ring with Terence Crawford, you know, they showed a massive gap in terms of level between those two guys. Yeah, he's even got fights against John Molina Jr. Again, you know, John Molina Jr. again, one of those journeyman type fighters, in my opinion. You know, he's got Ray Beltran on there as well. You know, but these are the fights in the lower division. He's even got Breeders Prescott there at some point, you know, before he fought Ricky Burns when he was coming up, you know. So again, you know, yes, he's been successful at 135 and 140, and he's showing early signs of success at welterweight. But again, how strong is the resume? Yeah. So again, same as, and I understand that, because he can only, don't get me wrong, with Terence Crawford at 135, 140, I think he's a tremendous fighter. First of all, let me just say, I should have said this before I started doing this, which I think all these guys are really good fighters. I've got nothing against any of these fighters whatsoever. Yeah. But when you look at their records aren't screaming, I deserve to be the #1 welterweight. None of them. Yeah, is what I'm trying to say. So Spence's record isn't that deep and that strong. He's had 24 fights, and the two most notable names on there are Kell, Brook and Lamar Peterson. You look at Terence Crawford, the names that jump out at you are going to be like Victor Porsel, you know, maybe a Ray Beltran, maybe, I doubt Ricky Burns you could count in there, to be honest with you. Who else is? Yilkas Gamboa, you know. That's, you know, I mean, you can't really rate Jeff Horn, Benavidez or Ndongo, let's be honest. You know, he's achieved great things, so I don't want to knock things from him either, but in those divisions he could only fight who's in and around him, if that makes sense. But again, you know, this debate where everyone's saying who's the #1 welterweight, you know, well, actually look at their records, and that's, you know, look at that if you're going to argue your point. You know, a lot of these guys are just going on the basis of what these guys do in the ring and not actually who they're fighting, if that makes sense. Okay, so let's look at Keith Thurman now. Most notable names on there, of course, Danny Garcia, Shawn Porter. You know, they're obviously he's one fighter that's fought and beat two of the top welterweights. Yeah, okay. But you look at the rest of his record. You know, he fought Luis Collazo before Porter, Robert Guerrero, Leonard Bundu, again Julio Diaz, Soto Carreras, Gabriel Chavez, you know. So again, all those fighters, fighters you use to keep busy, or, you know, gatekeepers and stuff like that. Don't get me wrong, Robert Guerrero is not a bad name to have on your record, I think. But again, how deep does his record go outside of the two wins he's had over Shawn Porter and Danny Garcia? Yeah. Again, it's the same as I said about Crawford and Spence. Yeah. So he's, what is he now? 28-0. Yeah, 28-0, right? So, and he's going to fight José Lopez soon in a tune-up fight, so whatever, we'll give him that. But again, Danny Garcia and Shawn Porter are the most notable names on his record. He's got two names that are the most notable, two of the top welterweights on the planet as well, let's be honest. Yeah, so you may turn around and say he's got maybe a slightly better record than the other two because of the name, those two names he's fought alone. But then you could turn around and say, well, Spence has fought Kell, Brook, and who was a champion, and what's his name? Lamar Peterson, again, who's another credible name to have on your record. So again, you know, like, you can't turn around and say, you know, any of these guys are the #1 welterweight on the planet, right? So let's look at Shawn Porter. 29 fights, 2 losses, 1 draw, right? Okay, so he beat Danny Garcia in his last fight, so he gets a point for that. Beat Andre Berta as well. Not a bad name to have on your record. I know a lot of people probably won't, you know, Berta's turned into a bit of a gatekeeper as well. Former 2-time world champion as well, if I remember. He is 2-time world champion, I'm pretty sure of it. He's fought Keith Thurman, but lost that fight against Keith Thurman. He's fought Adrien Broner, won that fight against Adrien Broner. Fought Kell Brook, but lost to Kell Brook. He fought Paulie Malignaggi, beat Paulie Malignaggi. Fought Devin Alexander, beat Devin Alexander. You know, and then he's got other names on this record. He's got Julio Diaz, Phil LaGreco. He fought Julio Diaz twice because he drawed against Julio Diaz. And then all the rest of the fighters are names that you use to step your fighter up. But when you look at it, actually, at Shawn Porter's record, take out his losses to Thurman and Kell Brook, he's beat Danny Garcia. You know, he's beat Andre Berto, beat Adrien Broner, beat Paulie Malignaggi, beat Devin Alexander. He's actually got quite a decent record there when you think about it. Yeah, let's be honest, he's got quite a decent record there, barring, you know, taking out, with exceptions to the losses against Kell Brook and against Keith Thurman. But remember, Kell Brook was the challenger and he beat him and took his title off him, so that was a title fight. And obviously Keith Thurman again was another title fight. He was challenging Keith Thurman for his belts, and he lost that fight, so you have to kind of take that into account as well. But if you look outside of those losses, he's actually got a bad record, to be honest with you. dare I say, he may have actually a slightly the stronger record, but then again, you could turn around and say maybe not, because he's got 2 losses against, you know, 2 top welterweights at that time when he fought them, in Kell, Brook and Thurman. So again, you know, it's one of those things, when you look deep at someone's record, then you look at actually who's actually got a better record here, you know, to be claiming the #1 spot at welterweight. You know, and you look at I have to say, when I look at Shawn Porter's record, you know, he's got some real notable wins. Like I said, Danny Garcia, Andre Berto, Adrien Broner, sorry, not Kell Brook, Paulie Malignaggi, Devin Alexander. You know, so he's probably got the most strongest in terms of wins against more notable names, but then he's got the losses against Thurman and Kell Brook, so that doesn't help his situation as well. So again, who do you say is the #1 welterweight when you look deep into their records, right? So let's look at Danny Garcia's box record. 34 fights, 2 losses, and those losses coming in his last 3 fights. Yeah, so his last 3 fights have been against Porter, Brandon Rios and Thurman, and he lost to Porter, and Thurman beat Brandon Rios. Prior to Thurman, obviously he was undefeated, fought Sammy Vargas, fought Robert Guerrero. That's when he won the vacant WBC belt at welterweight. Was that his first fight at welterweight? Or was the Paulie Malignaggi fight his first fight? I can't remember. Yeah, but then he fought Paulie Malignaggi. All these fights are wins, by the way. Fought Lamont Peterson, again, another good name to have on your record. Rod Salka, Mauricio Herrera, Lucas Matisse. At that time, Lucas Matisse was seen as the machine, like this wrecking machine back then. And, you know, I think that was Lucas Matisse's first loss. And since then, he's never been the same Lucas Matisse, let's be honest, yeah? Zab Judah, but Zab Judah way out of his prime. Eric Morales, again, way out of his prime. Beat Amir Khan before that, you know, where he came in last minute to replace Lamont Peterson after Lamont Peterson tested positive for testosterone. Beat Amir Khan as well, and that was a good win as well at that time, because Amir Khan was on top of his game at that time, you know what I mean? Elite level at that time, he was considered. Then before that, Eric Morales again, that was his first fight against Morales, won that fight, but again, well out of his prime. And then it's all the other fighters like Holt, Campbell, Figueroa, etc. John Figueroa, that is, you know, fighters that you would see him, you know, you would use to step up your fighter and, you know, get him up the rankings and stuff like that. So not a bad record from Danny Garcia either, but again, his biggest fights were against Shawn Porter and Thurman, and he lost those fights. So you can't really throw Danny Garcia into that mix either as the #1 world. So not that you can now anyway, because he's not a world champion anyway, but it's my point. It's just a point I'm trying to make. Yeah, that, you know, my point is that none of these guys have outstanding records. Let's be honest. Yeah. What I'm trying to say is that none of these guys have a Mayweather or Pacquiao record at that point in their careers, where you could turn around and say that, you know, these guys are, you know, these guys have outstanding records and this guy is the #1 welterweight, you know. And like Danny Garcia said, and this is the point I'm trying to make, like Danny Garcia said, until they all fight each other as the champions, and obviously he's thrown in that mix somewhere as well, but until all the champions have fought each other and one fighter consolidates all the belts, we will never know who the #1 welterweight is. It's that simple. So this debate and this argument that's going on social media at the moment and in YouTube channels that I'm seeing, yeah, that, oh no, you know, it's Spence's #1, no, Crawford's #1, no, Thurman's #1, you know, or Porter, you know, he's got the better record. You know, let's be honest, none of their records are outstanding records. Yeah, they've got 1 or 2 big wins on their records. Some of them have got some big losses on their records. So who is the #1 welterweight? No one. Until we see an undisputed champion, no one is. Yeah, none of them are. You know, simple as that. You know, so stop having this debate, you know, this fanboy debate over on social media, and stop selling and pushing your favorite fighter. Yeah, you all of you out there might listen to this, and one of these guys is your favorite fighter, whether it be Porter, Garcia, Crawford, Spence, Thurman, doesn't matter. Yeah, you're all pushing on, and some people on their channels are pushing for who their favorite welterweight is. You know, I like them all. I like all these guys. I think Thurman's a really good boxer. I like Shawn Porter. Yeah, Shawn Porter is probably not the best technical boxer, but he comes in and he works hard and he hustles in the ring. Yeah, and I like that attitude he has. You know, A little bit disappointed because I always thought that Shawn Porter was always one of those guys who will fight anyone, anywhere, anytime, any place. But with what's happened with this whole UGAS mandated fight, whatever you want to call it, and not making the fight with Errol Spence Jr. has kind of made me think twice about that now, yeah. But still, he's a good little fighter. Crawford's a good, talented fighter as well, tremendous fighter, yeah. You know, he's proven that over 2 weight classes, unified at 135, undisputed and lineal at 140, now holding the WBO at welterweight. And Errol Spence Jr. is a really good fighter as well, no doubt about it. I enjoy watching Errol Spence Jr. a lot. You know, Danny's not a bad fighter either. Danny's not a bad fighter. People underrate Danny Garcia a little bit, you know, in my opinion, but he's not a bad fighter either. They're all good fighters, yeah, but you're never gonna know who's number one until they all fight each other and we have one undisputed champion, and then we'll know who's the king of the welterweights, yeah. So this debate that's going on social media, stop it. All your YouTube channels out there who are trying to push Errol Spence Jr. or Terence Crawford as the #1 welterweight, and some of you even trying to push Keith Thurman. No, look at their records, go deep into their records. Yeah, like I just did now and broke it down for you. There isn't a #1 welterweight until they all fight each other and one of them consolidates all the belts and becomes undisputed lineal champion at welterweight. We do not have a #1 welterweight. Simple as that. Okay, before I end the video, I kind of want to give my take on this whole Mikey Garcia versus Spence fight that's coming up on March 16th, is it? So look, a lot of people thought Mikey Garcia was full of it, you know, that he wasn't being serious. One thing he's definitely done is he's proved you all wrong, that he was very serious about fighting Errol Spence Jr., yeah. And yeah, hats off to him for stepping up, because what was his last fight at, 140 or 135? He's been floating around between 135 and 140, let's be honest, yeah, since he's come back from since you know he's come out of that 2-year layoff where he had promotional problems with Bob Arum at Top Rank. He had to go to court for all of that, so he's been batting around between 135 and 140, right? Okay, so you could say he's going up 1 weight class or 2 weight classes, yeah. He's talking about this whole this new thing in boxing now, yeah, and it daring to be great. Look, I got nothing against someone trying to daring to be great, if that's what you want to call it, but be smart about it. Like, you know, I don't agree. I didn't agree when Kell Brook jumped up 2 weight classes to fight Triple G, daring to be great. You know, Amir when he jumped up 1 weight class and fought at Canelo weight of 155, daring to be great, apparently according to these guys. And I don't necessarily agree with this completely with Mikey Garcia moving up to 147 and jumping straight in there with Errol Spence Jr., with the likes of Errol Spence Jr. Even if you're doing it with Thurman or Porter or Danny, I still wouldn't agree with it, because you know what? As a fighter, you should be smart. You look at Andre Ward, for example, before he fought Sergey Kovalev, he allowed himself to get acclimated with the weight. You know, even Mayweather's been like that. It's a gradual, Pacquiao, it's a gradual thing you do over a period of time. And he's just jumping straight into there with a guy who is massive. You saw the size difference if you watched the PBC Fox announcement, yeah? The size difference is real, yeah? On fight night, Errol Spence Jr. will not come in looking like a welterweight. He will come in looking like a light middleweight. Yeah, he is a big welterweight. He's probably the biggest welterweight out of all of these guys. Yeah, so this natural size difference is going to be a problem. The power, yeah. You know, even the reach. I don't know what the reach is between these guys. Let's have a quick look at the reach, yeah. So here's the reach, right? Mikey Garcia has a 68-inch reach, yeah? Errol Spence Jr. has a 72-inch reach. That's a 4-inch reach difference, yeah? And there's even a height difference, as we already know. You know, Errol Spence Jr. is 5'9.5", and Mikey Garcia is 5'6". I can't believe Mikey Garcia is 5'6". Mikey Garcia looks a lot bigger. I'm looking at the box records for this. He looks a lot bigger than 5'6". I'm taller than Mikey Garcia. Yeah, I'm gonna tell you, I'm not the tallest guy in the world. I'm 5'7.5". Yeah, so Mikey Garcia is actually shorter than me. If this is correct on BoxRec, and Mikey Garcia's height is 5'6", that is a massive difference in height as well. So not only is he already losing on the height, the reach, he's also losing on the natural size. Yeah. The natural power that comes with Errol Spence Jr. He's probably got more power than a natural welterweight, to be honest with you. the way he punches. So everything's against Mikey here, you know, in my opinion. Yeah, and don't get me wrong, credit, he's showing some real balls by doing this, but at what cost? You know? And a lot of people are saying that, oh, he's ducking Lomachenko, that's why he's fighting Errol Spence Jr. Mate, if I was Mikey Garcia, I would rather take the Lomachenko fight than the Errol Spence Jr. fight. He's got a better chance of beating Lomachenko at a weight that he's comfortable at than fighting Errol Spence Jr. at a weight he's not comfortable at. Yeah, and first of all, before anyone says anything, remember the history, and this is where the casual boxing mindset comes into play. Remember the history of Mikey Garcia and Bob Arum. That's why that fight with Lomachenko is so difficult to make. Yeah, he doesn't trust Bob Arum. Yeah, he doesn't. And you can't blame him. He had a 2-year layoff and had to go to court to get himself out of that situation with Bob Arum. So there's bad blood between those two guys. You can hear it when Bob Arum talks as well. Yeah, I saw an article, I didn't read the article fully, but he said that he offered Mikey Garcia, Lomachenko and Terence Crawford. And he turned it down. He just doesn't want to do any business with Bob Arum by the looks of things. Yeah, so I don't know if we'll ever see that fight. I doubt it. I mean, if he's going to move up to welterweight, Jesus, like, I mean, like, look, end of the day, I would even rather take that Terence Crawford fight. Look at the size difference. The size difference is crazy when you look at the stats. You know, I hope Mikey knows what he's doing. I really do. Even his own brother, Robert Garcia, has even turned around and says, he don't like that fight. I'm going to talk. As soon as Mikey Garcia, the first time he said it, Robert Garcia's answer to that was, I am going to try and talk Mikey out of that fight. Not yet. You know, I'd rather move up to welterweight. And Robert Garcia is right in what he's saying. He's in agreement with me, which is that, yeah, Mikey can move up to welterweight, that's fine. Let's take up a few tune-up fights at welterweight. Let's get used to the weight. Let's grow into the weight and then take on Errol Spence Jr. I'd feel more comfortable with that, he says. Yeah, not go straight at welterweight and fight. But he seems to be like, you know, he got that question put to him as well. That, you know, the whole usual story you get in boxing is that a very good big man will always beat a very good small man. Yeah, but Garcia says, well, in some cases that's it's the other way around, and this is going to be that case, that it's going to be the other way around, where the little man beats the very good big man. I don't know, man, with these stats and stuff. Don't get me wrong, I know Mikey's a good fighter. I like Mikey. Yeah, he's an intelligent boxer. The one thing I think Mikey gets a lot of, I suppose, doesn't get enough credit from people, is because Mikey's not flamboyant in the ring. Yeah, what Mikey does is he's got the very strong boxing fundamentals which have been instilled into him by his brother. Yeah, very strong boxing fundamentals, and he does those very well, and he sticks to those. He doesn't do anything fancy or flamboyant in the ring. He uses his strong base of boxing fundamentals to beat his opponents, and he is a smart fighter as well, good movement, etc. But I don't know whether he beats Errol Spence Jr. on this, man. Like, it's a mammoth task, and if he does pull it off, hats off to him. But I don't see it happening. That's my point of view. You know, I'm pretty sure, you know, I would rather see him against, you know, another 140 pounder, or you know, against Lomachenko than this, or even fight, you know, Linares or someone, for crying out loud. You know, but you know what? Good luck to him, but I think it's a mistake personally. I think he should have allowed himself to get acclimated at welterweight and then fight the likes of an Errol Spence Jr. You know, Errol Spence Jr. is taking this fight as well. Let's not forget, you know, he couldn't get, obviously the Shawn Porter fight hasn't happened. He can't get a Keith Thurman fight. You know, I don't understand why I suppose I understand why a fight with Danny Garcia wasn't explored, because Danny's coming off in his last 3 fights. Like I said, he thought Keith Thurman lost, beat Brandon Rios, came back against Shawn Porter, lost that fight. So Danny's going to want like a tune-up fight, something to get him going again, get his confidence going. He doesn't want to have another loss on his record straight after Shawn Porter, so I can understand why that fight probably wasn't exploded with Errol Spence Jr. And to be fair, Danny Garcia says after his fight, his next fight, who's it against again? I've forgotten now, because I've been on this for so long too. I wasn't expecting this video to be so long, but anyway, Danny said after his next fight he wants a rematch with either Keith Thurman or Shawn Porter, and that's, like I've already stated on that, you know, I could see something like that happening. And if it does happen and the Errol Spence Jr. Doesn't get the winner at Shawn Porter and Keith Thurman, then I'm going to be pissed. Seriously am. I'm going to get on their backs about that. But look, as for Mikey Garcia, good luck to you, man. Good luck to you, because I'm going to repeat it to you guys again. The reach difference is a 4-inch reach difference. Spence has 72 inches in terms of his reach, compared to Mikey Garcia's 68-inch reach. The height difference is massive as well. Errol Spence Jr. is 5'9.5", and Mikey Garcia is shorter than me at 5'6", according to BoxRec. And the natural weight and natural size difference is going to be another issue as well. Let's be honest. Look, before I sign off, I'm going to say one thing when it comes to this whole Mikey Garcia and Errol Spence Jr. fight. I'm not going to accept any freaking excuses. I'm telling you now. Yeah, if Mikey Garcia decided to step up and daring to be great and take Errol Spence Jr. on at welterweight at his own peril, yeah, don't saying he can't do it. There's a very small chance, in my opinion, I feel he can do it. I'm going with Errol Spence Jr. on this one, yeah, no doubt. But I like Mikey as a fighter, but I think this is a step too far for him personally, yeah? Okay, but I'm not going to accept any excuses. I didn't accept any excuses from Kell Brook when he said, when he stepped up 2 weight classes to fight, what's his name, Triple G, because he was mouthing off saying, I'm naturally a middleweight and all that. And then when he lost, he was like, oh, well, you know, the weight difference and all that sort of nonsense. Same with Amir when he fought Canelo at Canelo weight of 155, that catch weight. You know, he was same talk as Kell Brook. Oh, you know, I'm naturally a middleweight. I walk around like a middleweight, you know. And then when he lost the fight, oh, I'm naturally a 147 pounder. I thought I could do it, but it was probably a mistake. Again, excuses. Same with Rigondeaux. When Rigondeaux stepped up 2 weight classes, fight Lomachenko, you chased that fight. If you're chasing a fight against a guy who's a weight class or 2 weight classes above you, I don't accept any excuses here on Keep It Real Boxing. That's on you. Yeah, don't give me no excuse about weight and all that stuff. You knew the risks that are involved. You knew there was a massive weight difference, a size difference, etc. when you signed up for the fight. So don't be expecting me to kind of, you know, cuddle you and, you know, as a fighter and you know, help you with your excuses as to why you lost. Yeah, you knew why you were going to lose. You knew why you lost because you knew that when you signed the contract, that the challenge that was ahead of you. So if you're daring to be great, don't make no excuses. I said the same thing when it came to what's his name, Rigondeaux, when he stepped up 2 weight classes to fight Lomachenko. Lomachenko wasn't chasing Rigondeaux, let's be honest. And I think Rigondeaux is a really good boxer. Don't get me wrong, this is not a hate. Yeah, I think Rigondeaux was a really good boxer, right? But you knew the risks involved in jumping up 2 weight classes. You knew there was going to be a power difference. You knew there was going to be a size difference. Yeah, okay. You knew the weight might affect and slow you down as a fighter. That's on you when you make that decision and you chase a fight. Yeah, same with Mikey. Mikey's chasing this fight. He's been chasing this fight since the beginning of the year, I think it is, isn't it? Yeah, now he's finally got the fight. Go and have that fight. But if you lose, don't expect me to buy into any excuses. Oh, you know, I can imagine what's going to happen. Oh, you know, maybe I was daring to be great, and maybe I should have listened to my brother and acclimated at the weight a little bit better. Or, you know, I jumped up 1 or 2 weight classes. Maybe it wasn't the smartest idea. He's a really big welterweight. I didn't realise till I got in the ring how big he was, and blah blah blah. I don't want to hear none of that excuses. I'm not going to accept any of it. That's all I'm going to say. Alright, listen, I'm going to get out of here because this video has gone way longer than I expected it to. As always, guys, let me know what you think, yeah, and try and keep it clean. Some of you guys get so sensitive, it's unbelievable. I see some comments in my last video at middleweight. Some guy got really upset. I think he was a Triple G fanboy. Never really said. Got really upset about, you know, things I said in there. Look, I'm just giving my opinion, yeah, and I'm happy for you to debate back and give your opinion, but don't be like angry and mad and about it. You know what I mean? Like, Jesus, you know, some of you guys are so sensitive. All right, look, but anyway, let me know what you think. As always, guys, like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, this is Cypherbox reminding you to keep it real.